Hey, have you been dealing with a lack of confidence in your homeschool and in your ability to educate your children? I know what that feels like. When I started homeschooling, I was wondering, could I do this as well? I really wanted to give my kids the best education, and there's so many choices. It can get really overwhelming. But one of the things that I found is that history was homeschooled. When you look at the stories of so many famous people in history, like Leonardo da Vinci and C.S. Lewis and Laura Ingalls Wilder, so many of those people were homeschooled for at least part of their childhood education. And the benefits that they got from homeschooling, the time, the interest led studies really helped them become who they were meant to be. In my new book, The Inspired Homeschool, I want to help you develop and nurture those gifts in your children by looking at the lives of 10 homeschoolers in history, the way that you can apply the principles that we take from those lives, and just empower you to create a more life giving homeschool routine, bring more joy, more confidence into your homeschool with the Inspired Homeschool. You can go to inspiredhomeschoolbook.com. And if you order the book now, you can get access to a free student planner, a master book list, and an awesome planning workshop. So you can get over those homeschool fears and get started right away. So the page is inspiredhomeschoolbook.com. Pre-order the Inspired Homeschool book and get a bunch of great bonuses when you order. This is Jennifer Pepito with the Restoration Home podcast. This is the show where we talk about life-giving habits for a flourishing family culture. Today on the show, I'm so excited to be chatting with some of my dear online friends. I'm with Cindy West from Our Journey Westward and Alicia Hutchinson from Learning Well Journal. You can find her at aliciahutchinson.com. And we've all three of us, like, what do we have? Like 100 years cumulative of homeschooling or something? Like, I mean, at least 50. I know at least 50 cumulatively of homeschooling between the three of us. We've all graduated students. We all have adult children. And I count them as some of my greatest encouragers and friends here on in the wild world of homeschooling and homeschool mom businesses. But we'd love to talk a little bit today about self-care, because I was, as an early homeschool mom, I was in the 90s, right? When self-care was kind of like a non-word. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was all like, die to yourself, die to your flesh, give it all. And I think I still believe in that message. But also, I come from a family where already there's like a leaning towards women as martyrs, and a leaning towards like self-care is something that you should feel bad or guilty about. So I have such an uphill battle. And yet heading into, like, I'm 53, heading into this season of letting my adult children go and live their life, trying to figure out why I keep gaining weight, even though I've been trying to eat so healthy, and trying to make sure that I stay calm and peaceful so I can be a great mom and grandma to my children and my adult children. It's all a big deal. And I know that I'm not alone. I know that so many moms are dealing with, like, maybe some unexplained anxiety. Maybe they're dealing with some unusual weight gain, or maybe they're just trying to figure out, like, how do I do life in a new season where maybe my kids are demanding a little bit less on me, or maybe I'm still in that heat of that season and wondering how I can stay healthy for the long haul so I can be a great mom and grandma. Can we talk about it, ladies?
Sure, let's go for it.
So, Alicia, you published the Learning Well Journal, and in there's always like some great recipes or some of my favorite mom books. I know Liz, I don't remember her handle right now, but she's Elizabeth Enzor. She publishes some great book lists. One of my favorites was The Enchanted April from the list. But tell me a little bit, like, what are you doing to just bring joy and delight to yourself in this season?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because motherhood is just one season after another, and nothing ever really stays the same for too terribly long. I feel like we get the hang of one season, and then all of a sudden we're in the next and we don't really know how we got there. And, we're in the infant season and we have no sleep, and it's very physically taxing. And then we move into kind of those sweet years where it's a little less like physically taxing with little kids, but they're busier. And so, that's kind of crazy too. And then as they get older, people say the bigger the kid, the bigger the problem. And that always sounded negative to me. And I don't think it has to be negative, but it is. They're growing into adults. And so they're dealing with relationships and jobs and big decisions that they have to make in life. So it's a whole different type of tax on the mother. And I actually say that with a lot of joy, because I wouldn't change it for a thing. It's just, you don't expect all of this. And this is why having older moms in your life is so important, because they can tell you what's coming and maybe how to handle it without losing it too much. But yeah, I think is just to know that it's not going to stay the same. And there is a difference between selfishness as a mother and self-care. And, being able to balance all the things that a mom has to do and take care of herself. I don't know. I think that there's a real gracious way that you can do that with a lot of joy and without bridging over to this kind of demanding, crabby mother that's like always starved for, a little alone time. I think having a good routine in your day, no matter what season you're in, having a little bit of time for yourself, no matter what season you're in, being able to get out and go for a walk. If you can't, if you're not in a season where you can go to the gym or do this big kind of exercise regimen, which I think is a lot of us most of the time, at least being able to go out for a walk, like one good walk and maybe some little shorter walks with your little kids or even your older kids. It's a good time to chat with your teenagers too. So I don't know. It's just a constant balance, and there's no quick and fast, easy rules. I think it's just kind of being able to kind of balance as time marches on and things shift and change.
Yeah. I love that advice, Alicia, of not feeling too settled in any season, because it is true that every single season brings its own challenges and brings things that you have to flex with. And as well, mentioning the walk, because I think that is one of the best ways we can both take care of ourselves, but also co-regulate, whether it's letting a child share their heart with us, talking with our husband, or like I just took this morning, 7:00 in the morning, took a 2-mile walk with a friend. Like the more we can get out, walk and talk with somebody, the happier and healthier we'll be. Cindy, you run Our Journey Westward and No Sweat Nature Studies. And one of the things that you've been teaching moms is how to enjoy and study nature together. I have found, for me, nature is like an essential in this season. I'll eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner outside on my porch. Yesterday, I did a workshop for the Inspired Homeschool book. And then as soon as it was over, my daughter and I went up and sat by the river for a little while and just sat there and read a book and, just chilled by the water out in nature. And so for me, nature has been an absolute essential for just calming my overworked nervous system, because parenting 7 adult kids and running a business is a little intense, I will say. So I'd love to hear, Cindy, like, how has nature time over many years of prioritizing it, how's it been a blessing to you?
Oh, wow. Okay, so if we're talking about let's go back to the seasonal idea of overwhelm and how every season kind of changes with our children. When they are little and they have all the energy in the world, nature study can be an energy release. And then as people start going hitherto and yonder, it's also a really good centering place. And then when we are maybe in seasons where our kids are off doing other things and we find ourselves maybe with hormonal changes or just whatever, nature is that, you've just said it, it's kind of a calming place for us. So over the years, what I know is that God created nature. And in that, I've always told my children that, and myself, I remind myself of this all the time. When we see his seasonal care, when we know that he's taking care of the birds and that tree is growing again this year through its cycle, and all the other things in nature we can see, we can be assured that God cares, and that he is so creative that he wants us to really be able to just see him and know him and live in him through that. So of course, I mean, we can use nature in school too, and I hope you guys do, but it's also just this place you said to unplug and go and breathe. You guys think about it. We're getting fresh air. We're getting sunshine. We're getting the knowledge that God is our creator. And in this crazy world that we're living in right now, he is a constant and we can trust him in that. And then we can know that he is all powerful and so cool and so creative. And again, more trust. So I don't think it's a coincidence at all that through all of those phases, we can find joy and peace and comfort in sitting in nature or actually going in and digging into a nature study. And I just want to say one more thing. I visited California for the first time last fall, and you, my friend, you have one of the most beautiful places in the world to go visit nature. So yay for you. You just said that you were sitting by the river, and I thought, oh, I can only picture that river she's sitting by. It must be
Yeah,
awesome.
we definitely need to do a like little, since our kids are getting older and don't need us as much anymore, we need to do a little like weekend getaway. And I would totally do it here. That'd be great.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I think is so helpful for younger homeschool moms is hearing from the ones who've graduated kids about what really mattered. Because for me, like as I'm talking about the Inspired Homeschool this summer and talking about homeschooling with the Peaceful Press, I want to encourage moms, like some of the things that you're worried about in the moment don't matter as much as you think they do. Like I really loved one homeschool creator told me at one point that you only need to teach grammar 3 times, like once in elementary school, once in middle school, and once in high school as a foreign language. And little tips like that are so helpful for, deciding then what do I focus on, what really matters, because it wasn't that hard. Like my daughter who got a Juris Doctorate in high school, she was mostly completely independent. Like she was, a lot of the time choosing her own studies. She was a big reader, so I didn't really have to encourage that. She did 1 year of a speech club, and that helped her with formatting a really well composed essay. But there was not all this intensity in our homeschooling, and I still was able to graduate people who went to college or wrote books, or my daughter getting a Juris Doctorate. So for you guys, looking back and thinking about, what mattered, what really mattered, what would you say to those young moms, maybe even who are just getting started, who are like, oh, I've got to do, all this curriculum, and I've got to, be in all these classes. And I think there are so many more choices today. I think it's even more overwhelming for families. What would you guys say is like the most important things that you did?
Yeah. So academically, I really think character is so much more important than the academic side of things, but I know people want the like practical academic side of things too. So I would say for sure focusing on good literature. All of my kids that have grown and graduated, they just choose good books. And if they don't choose a good book and choose something that, Charlotte Mason would say is more like twaddle, they totally own it. They're like, Mom, can you believe I'm reading this? It's just a silly, fun novel to read. I'm like, totally, I do it too. But they know the good stuff, and they're still willing at 24 years old to challenge themselves to read a good biography that might be kind of more challenging. So I would definitely say, find the good books and keep reading the good books, even if your kids are like, oh, I don't want to read, this is hard, or this is dry, or this is boring. They're good. I mean, like these are good books that they'll appreciate later. A lot of that is just, teen speak or whatever. And also teaching them to manage their time and be independent. So helping them to kind of guide them like, hey, this is what we need to have done by the end of the week. How do you think you can fit this all in 5 days with this, and this going on? So those types of, character traits are just good skills to have. Yeah, you can go ahead, Cindy. I might have another idea.
Yeah, you hop in whenever. I don't know if all of your listeners are Charlotte Mason homeschoolers or not. And I don't think you have to be, but I will say that what I would count as the most important things all came from that principle. I didn't consider myself a full on, I was going to do to the T everything in a Charlotte Mason education, but I would call myself Charlotte Mason inspired. And I think by embracing that philosophy early on, it included basically everything that Alicia was just saying, plus some, and you did it in such a timely manner that then there was time to also go and explore some other things too. So the good books, by far would be my number one thing, because I think good books can teach everything from character to subject level stuff to practical skills. Everything. So, and then I would say the next best thing I did when we take all those subject things together would be to put them into shorter lessons. Again, a Charlotte Mason principle, because when you understand brains and how brains work, that shorter, really concise, let's do it attention span is usually enough. And so again, that led us to be able to finish just a feast of things, but then have usually much of our afternoons so each of my kids could go and explore on their own. And that, I would say, I want to add to Alicia's habit training. She's talking about character building. Habit training is a way to do that. So I want to include that. But I would think of my top 4 maybe is to make sure your kids have some time to follow their passions. Because as I'm on the other side of this, with all 3 of my kids now, all 3 of them in some form or fashion either followed a life into what their passions were that I gave them time to explore, or those passions became part of the way they grew towards leadership or belief in themselves, or hobbies that they now love, or places that they met spouses and things. It's just wild. I could tell you stories for a long time. So those are my top 4, but I am going to throw in top 5 one more time and mention nature study. And I'm not saying that because nature study is my thing. You guys, I'm telling you, the Lord speaks to us in that place and teaches us way more than just science in that place. So they are my top 5.
Yeah, I love that, Cindy. And I'll let you finish, Alicia. But in the Inspired Homeschool, the last chapter is about Joan of Arc. And Joan of Arc only was able to follow such detailed instructions that led the French people to freedom because she'd spent so much time in quiet listening in nature that the Lord did speak to her. So I love that. Alicia.
I would agree with Cindy. I'm not a Charlotte Mason guru. I love her work. I very much respect what she writes, and I've gotten so much wisdom from her work, but I'm not a guru. I would say we're a Charlotte Mason inspired homeschool as well. And one thing you touched on, and what I wanted to reiterate, is the habit training. And it's such a bigger part of homeschooling than I think a lot of new homeschoolers realize. It's about so much more than just what curriculum lineup are you choosing, because really what you're doing day to day is you're training your kids. It's not just about, oh, can they add well or multiply well or whatever. But the other thing that we always really, really focused on and still focus on is work ethic. And what we're doing, and it doesn't mean you're a drill sergeant as a mom, but kind of like to what you were saying, Cindy, is, hey, we have from 9 to noon. Let's do short lessons. We're not asking a ton of our kids. We're asking a reasonable amount. Let's work really, really hard, do the absolute best job that we can do. And then you have the whole afternoon to enjoy yourself. And I found that this translates really well to then when they actually go out and get a real job, because they know they clock in at this time, they clock out at this time. And then the reward is you get praise from your boss, you get praise from your coworkers, and of course you get a paycheck and get to learn how to manage all of that, which you can learn how to do from books. So I would say that is another top thing that we focus on, is just being good workers. Work like you're working for the Lord, like scripture tells us to do, no matter what that job might be.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, Alicia. I think that there are so many studies even that say, your ability, your grit is one of the greatest indicators of your success. A bit like your aptitude for success is so tied to, can you work hard? And I think that is why we also need that balance in academics, because there should also be some physical work, whether it's doing the laundry or mowing the lawns or taking out the trash. Like, there should be some physical work that children are engaged in. One of the things that has been really helpful for me as a mom is just some basic daily habits, having a morning routine, having an evening routine, having a routine of reading out loud to my children every day. What are some of the habits that have really shaped your home, Cindy and Alicia?
Oh, wow. Okay. Morning time. Morning time was preceded by a quick chore list. And I agree. I think that was super important to have physical. I will add to that life skill kinds of things. So living on a farm, that was very easy for us because things always were breaking or needing attention or whatever. But your regular, so when we go to routine, a morning chore list followed by a morning basket for us. In that morning basket, we just incorporated most of the things that our family could do together. And it was such a beautiful time of building our family culture and relationships and shared memories, etc. And then we generally would go right on into independent work for everybody and then meet back together, whether it was for a read aloud or a unit study that we were doing or something like that. And then in those afternoons, because I think sometimes it's important to say, what does this free afternoon look like? The free afternoon can look like a lot of things, but it's not your kids just are now free to go sit in front of a television. Oh, no. It's more like, hey, we could do artist study together. We could go on a nature walk together. Hey, the veterinarian is coming to the barn to work on the horses. Head on up there and see what you can learn. Let's go run errands together. Can you help me find the best deals today? Hey, there's bike tires need to be fixed. That's the time where you can get in so many of your fine arts things, your extra things, your practical skill kinds of things, and then the hobby sorts of things that they also want to learn. And that's pretty much, and Bible was always in our morning time. I want to mention that too, because a consistent Bible time and consistent reading time of living books, to me, remember I said that was like key. The Bible fits in with that living key thing for me.
Absolutely. I 100% agree, Cindy. It was such a core for us. And Alicia, what are some of those habits that have been really life-giving for you?
So I think for me, ever since my firstborn was a baby, I had to get myself into the habit of getting up before him. And I know people don't want to hear that. People don't like getting up early because hard work is hard. But, not perfectly, not every single day, 365. But if I can get up before my kids, no matter the age, my day always just feels a little bit more smooth and under control. I feel like, if I can get up, have a cup of coffee by myself, take a few minutes to read my Bible by myself. We always do start our day in our homeschool, reading the Bible together, but to have my own personal reading time and also to have my kids see me have my own personal reading time when they come down and see that mom's been reading her Bible, there's her coffee and there's her Bible, I think sets a good example. And if I can sneak out and get a walk in, or it depends on the season. Sometimes I'm going to the gym, sometimes I'm not. I happen to be in a season where I am not. But if I can get out and just have some exercise by myself, I think just helps so much just to kind of get your bearings for the day. And then I also like to be dressed and ready for the day before we start homeschool. It just helps me to feel serious about what we're doing and helps me feel kind of in charge. But yeah, so that's kind of how I start my day, and probably very similar to Cindy. We start with like a morning meeting, which is always Bible time, and then lots of a mixture of things, artist study or our read aloud, poetry, lots of kind of those enrichment studies that are kind of my favorite thing. And then discussion, and then we move into the other subjects. And then we typically, even with high schoolers, I like to be done at 1:00 at the latest. And then the afternoon, very much similar to Cindy. It's the kids do some chores or their hobbies or read on their own. My older kids went to their jobs at that time. I never let them get a job where that wasn't flexible enough that they could have, like, when they got jobs outside the home, it was always like no mornings. Like, the mornings are protected time. You can't go to work at 8:30 in the morning because that's when we have school. But yeah, the afternoon, and then that's when I can get some work done around the house. And that kind of thing. So it's just a very, nothing set in stone, nothing is super rigid, but it's just a flow that just works really well for us.
Yeah, what a beautiful life that we're creating with our children. And for me, it was a really painful adjustment to not be homeschooling anymore, because we did so many nature outings and watercolor painting and reading beautiful books together and talking about them and listening to music and looking at art. I mean, just such a wonderful life. I loved homeschooling, but through high school, usually my kids are doing some either community college classes or co-op classes. And I definitely start phasing out of that enjoyable part of homeschooling. I just have, my youngest has one more semester of high school. And so it has been like an adjustment to learn how to do mother culture when I don't have the excuse of homeschooling. Like, I still need to nurture my own soul. And I'm a big reader, so it's easy to get the reading in, but sometimes it's harder to do the other stuff. So I have taken up, I'm perfecting fermentation right now. I just started some pickles and I have some sauerkraut going. I've been working in my garden a lot. What are some of the ways that you guys are, especially you, Cindy, because you've graduated your last child, and so you do have to almost make an effort to continue doing those beautiful things that enrich your soul while you were homeschooling? And for those of you listening who are still in the homeschool years, like, do the things that you love while you're homeschooling your children, because later on you might not have the excuse of homeschooling to be able to do the things you love as much. But I'd love to hear, Cindy, like, how you are, with the demands of your farm life and your business, how are you still doing some of the things you love, even though you're not homeschooling anymore?
Well, honestly, you said it. We almost have to force ourselves to practice mother culture, because homeschooling was a fantastic excuse to be able to sit down and watercolor with kids, or take those specific nature walks with kids, or whatever. So I am finding that my business keeps me really busy, and our farm keeps us really busy. So I'm having to set aside specific time. And I went to Hobby Lobby and I bought some cross stitch. I bought some painting things, and I pulled out some of the books that have been sitting around for way too long in that to read pile. And so now I almost have myself a little Cindy basket, a little mother culture basket. And when everyone else is sitting and maybe watching a movie together, I might sit and watch that movie with them, but I might also have something else going on that I'm working on. Or this is the first time in my life, I mean, in a really, really long time, that there are quiet hours in my day. And so I'm trying to utilize those quiet hours when other people are at work and I have a house to myself for the first time, you guys, in almost 30 years, to say, you know what, one of those hours just needs to be, I don't call it mother culture necessarily, but just relaxation and peace and building and pouring into me and my skills and my time. And of course, I'm doing Bible study, so that's kind of a given. I'm talking more of that mother culture kind of fine artsy stuff.
Yeah.
And not just sitting and scrolling the phone. That
Right.
is not relaxing. That leaves me so stressed.
Yes. And it's so tempting to fill our extra time that way,
Yes.
especially because we're also probably feeling some feelings of unrest because our kids are leaving or our kids are off doing something, or, it's like there is an adjustment where it's a little too quiet, and it's painful to not be in the same demand as we once were. Like, I will say it out loud. It was so wonderful. I loved raising my children and having them be so independent. My youngest this summer is working at a summer camp, and I mean, he's really having a wonderful time. I'm so happy for him, but he doesn't need me. And so it is an adjustment that can be easy to then numb out the unrest by scrolling, when instead we should probably be journaling or talking with a friend or working in our garden or doing something that's more life-giving. Alicia, I want to ask one more question for you both. One of the benefits for me of being on the tail end of homeschooling and having my kids be mostly independent is my relationship with my husband is so much better. Like, I am sorry to say, I often prioritize my kids over my husband. I often looked at him more as like an asset to, like, can you provide for us? Can you work in the garden? Can you know what I mean? Like, can you do all these things, but less as a friend. And I am sorry for the ways that I squandered some of our time, because it did create stress for my children when I was putting them ahead of my husband, or when I was unhappy with my husband. It created stress for my kids. But I'm so thankful that we made it through, because I know there's so many moms in that season where they're like, maybe I'm just going to divorce this guy because he's not working hard enough, or he's not doing enough in the home, or he's not like parenting the way I wish he would parent. Like, most of my husband and I's fights were over different ways of parenting, or over like about 3 days before I get my period, where there'd be a fight. And so I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that we made it through that hard season. We're having so much fun together now. And it's such a legacy for our kids. Like, we will be better parents to our children. We will be able to provide better for, family vacations. Just the joys of later life are more available to us because we've stayed together. And so I'd love to hear from you guys just how you're nurturing your marriages. And I know we're almost out of time. I just love if you have something to say. Alicia, you can start.
Well, everything you said is just so true. I'm not quite, my youngest is an eighth grader, and believe me, I am like hanging on to that by dear life by dear life, because I'm just like, I'm not ready for it to be over either. I love this life. I love homeschooling. But as far as the marriage part goes, that is the relationship. And I know life is full of seasons, but that kind of is the steady, right? Like, you're growing kind of together the whole way, whereas your kids are growing in their own lives, becoming adults. It's different with your spouse. And so everything you said, I thought was just so true. And by sticking with it, even when you're super stressed in the thick of raising kids, sticking through it and, doing the hard thing, which when it does seem like in the world tells you, oh, if you're not satisfied in every way, if you're not happy in every way, or if he's not filling your love bucket, just forget it. I do think that there's so much blessing to just staying the course. And so, I do think date nights are good to be able to be alone together. Again, sometimes it seems kind of formulaic to just be like, every Friday night, this is what we do. And also unattainable, because life is just not quite like that all the time. But, if you can have a sort of regular time when you're alone together, just to catch up at night, even where there's a bedtime for kids, so that you can have some time alone in the evenings to talk. I know that that's when the best time for Jared and I is, opposed to the morning, but morning might be a great time too. But just that regular connection, so that you don't get to the point where your kids are, all out of the house and you're looking at this person like, who are you? But it is hard. I mean, it's a hard thing, but also I think it's in the way you look at it too. There's so much joy to watching your kids grow up, to doing life together, and nobody else loves your kids as much as your husband does. So you and your husband. So, connect on the joy that you have together. And I just think, like you said, there's so much blessing when you just, stay with it, no matter what the world is saying.
So good, Alicia. Cindy, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I just want to remind, I really don't have much to add to that, because the date nights and the weekends and whatever you can do, and try not to focus on your children while you're doing that. But I wanted to focus on something that you said, and that was, it's, you didn't say it this way, but it's somewhat heartbreaking when you have homeschooled and poured your entire self truly into these children. And I just want everybody to know, and this isn't meant to bring anything down, but there will be a day when you're finished homeschooling. And the goal, you guys, the whole time has been to grow these wonderfully independent adults. And so you've got to remember that, especially as your kids get older, that is the goal. And there will be a break. That doesn't mean your family's not going to be close when your kids are adults, but there will be a break, and it will probably hurt. And you will be left with this man that you kind of need to know. And you need to begin. It's very, very hard to nurture that when you have little people. It just is. Do the best you can. But as they grow in independence, you should be working really hard to try to bring that relationship with your husband further and further and further towards the front of the line if you have put him towards the back because of kids. And then when you do, when those transitions happen, it won't be like you've lost everything. It will still hurt because homeschooling is awesome, but you will be left with a relationship that you can also go, oh, wow, we have a little time to go do things, and we actually have a little money now because we're not spending it all on those people.
It's so true. This has been a really good conversation. I know it's going to be so loved by the Restoration Home community listeners, because having people with some experience is always more encouraging than listening. And we've talked about this in private, just listening to someone who's had some experience. And I especially love just that reminder to take care of ourselves and our relationship with God and our husband, because as wonderful as it is to be with our children and to raise them, that season will end. And if we've done it well, they're going to be pretty independent from us. And so learning to nurture those other relationships is important. Thanks for joining me today, Alicia. You can find Alicia at aliciahutchinson.com. Thanks for joining Cindy. You can find Cindy at ourjourneywestward.com. It's been such a joy to chat with you both today.
Thank you.